Jake Morrison felt cold, really cold. The kind of cold that goes deep into your bones and stays there. His eyes opened slowly, like trying to lift heavy weights. Everything looked blurry at first. White lights. Metal walls. The smell of recycled air. He tried to move his arms, but they felt heavy and stiff. His mouth was dry like sand. Where was he? What happened? Slowly, memories started coming back. The mission, the ship, the long sleep, the cryopod. That was it. He was in cryo-sleep on the research ship Horizon's Edge. They were going to Kepler 442, a star system 50 years away from Earth. Jake was the mission commander. They had 200 people on board, scientists, engineers, doctors, all sleeping in their pods for the long journey. But something felt wrong. Very wrong. Jake pushed against the pod door. It opened with a soft hiss. Cold mist poured out around him. He sat up slowly, his head spinning. The room was quiet. Too quiet. He should hear other pods opening. People talking. The ship's crew waking up. Instead, he heard nothing but the low hum of machines. "Hello?" Jake called out. His voice sounded rough and weak. "Anyone there?" No answer. Jake climbed out of his pod. His legs felt like rubber. He grabbed the wall to keep from falling. The cryo bay stretched out in front of him. Rows and rows of sleeping pods. All of them should be opening now. All of them should have people waking up, but the pods were dark. Silent. Jake walked to the nearest pod. It belonged to Carl Martinez, the chief engineer. Jake looked through the small window. Carl was inside, but he looked wrong. His skin was pale blue. Ice crystals covered his face. The pod's display showed red warning lights. No, Jake whispered. He ran to the next pod. Amy Rhodes, the science officer. Same thing. Blue skin, ice. Red lights. Jake ran down the row, checking pod after pod. Lisa Grant, Tom Baker, Maria Santos. All of them, all dead. The cold had killed them. Their life support systems had failed, but not his. Why not his? Jake's hands were shaking now. Not from the cold. From fear. He was alone. Completely alone on a ship in deep space with 199 dead people. He had to get to the bridge. He had to find out what happened. Jake moved through the ship's corridors. Everything looked the same, but felt different. Older somehow. Dust covered some of the walls. Some lights flickered. The ship felt tired. The bridge was empty. Jake sat down at the main computer and turned it on. The screen lit up with information. Ship status, location, time. Jake stared at the numbers. They were wrong, very wrong. According to the computer, they had been traveling for 127 years. Not 50, 127. That's impossible, Jake said out loud. His voice echoed in the empty bridge, but the computer didn't lie. Star charts showed their position. They were close to Kepler 442 now, very close. But they had taken much longer to get here than planned. Jake called up the ship's log. The AI's voice filled the bridge. It sounded like Dr. Lisa Grant, because her brain patterns had been used to create the ship's computer. Mission log. Year 73. Multiple system failures continue. Navigation computers damaged by cosmic storm. Cryopods experiencing power fluctuations. Attempting repairs. Jake fast-forwarded through more logs. Mission log. Year 95. Exotic particle exposure from unknown nebula. All attempts to wake crew have failed. Cryosystems operating at minimum power. Mission log. Year 118. Approaching destination system. Beginning final wake-up sequence for surviving crew member. Surviving crew member. Just one. Him. Jake leaned back in his chair. His head was spinning. Again, but not from weakness this time. From shock. He had been asleep for over a century. Everyone else was dead. He was alone. But wait, how was he alive? If the cryopods failed, how did his work? Jake stood up to head back to the cryo bay, but something felt strange. His movement felt ... different, smoother, faster, when he pushed. Off from the chair, he moved much farther than he expected. He had to grab the wall to stop himself. That was weird. Jake tried again. He jumped slightly. The jump carried him almost to the ceiling. That shouldn't be possible. Not in normal gravity. Jake looked at his hands. They looked normal. But when he pressed his palm against the metal wall, he felt something strange, like electricity. The wall was alive with power. He walked back to the cryo bay. This time he paid attention to how he moved. His steps were lighter. His reflexes felt quicker. When a loose cable hung down from the ceiling, he caught it without thinking. His hand moved faster than his brain could process. In the cryo bay, Jake found his pod and checked its systems. The readings were impossible. His pod had received much more power than the others, but not from the ship's main systems. The power readings showed an unknown energy source. Jake pulled up the medical scanner. It took readings of his body and compared them to his medical files from before the mission. The differences were shocking. His bone density was 300% higher than normal. His muscle fibers were completely different, denser, stronger. His brain activity showed patterns that didn't match normal human readings. But the strangest thing was his cellular structure. Every cell in his body contained traces of exotic particles. The same particles mentioned in the ship's log. The particles from the nebula they had passed through. Jake sat down heavily on a medical bench. The pieces were starting to fit together. The cosmic storms had damaged the ship and extended their journey. They had passed through some kind of nebula filled with unknown particles. The particles had somehow kept him alive while changing him into something else. Something more than human. Jake tested his new abilities carefully. He could lift heavy equipment with one hand. He could run down corridors faster than any human should be able to move. When he looked at the ship's computer systems, he understood them instantly, like the information just flowed into his brain. Most amazing of all, when he touched certain parts of the ship, he could feel the power flowing through them. The electrical systems, the computer networks, even the life support machines. It was like he could sense the ship's entire nervous system. Jake spent hours exploring what he could do. He fixed broken systems just by touching them and thinking about what needed to be repaired. He accessed computer files just by placing his hand on the data terminals. He could even control some of the ship's functions with his mind. But with each discovery, the weight of his situation grew heavier. He was alone, changed into something that wasn't quite human anymore. And he was approaching an unknown star system with no idea what he would find there. Jake stood at the bridge's main window and looked out at the stars. Ahead of them, a yellow sun grew larger. Kepler to 442, their destination. What had taken 200 people to accomplish, he would now have to do alone. He thought about Earth, about the people who had sent them on this mission. They were all dead now. Everyone he had ever known was gone. 127 years was more than a human lifetime. But Jake wasn't quite human anymore, was he? The ship's scanners detected something ahead. Planets, several of them orbiting the star. And on one of the planets, something else. Artificial structures. Cities. Signs of intelligent life. Jake wasn't alone in the universe, after all. The question was, would whatever lived on that planet see him as a friend or a threat? And with his new abilities, which one would he turn out to be? Jake stared at the scanner readings. The planet below was covered with cities. massive structures that looked like metal spears reaching up toward space. Ships moved between them like insects around a hive. Lots of ships. More ships than Jake could count. The horizon's edge was still 2 days away from the planet, but already Jake could see that this was not an empty world waiting for human colonists. Someone else lived here. Someone with advanced technology. Jake tried to make sense of what he was seeing. The mission planners on Earth had scanned this system for years before sending the expedition. They had found no signs of intelligent life. No radio signals. No artificial structures. The planet was supposed to be empty, but that was over 130 years ago. Maybe this species had arrived after Earth's last observations. Or maybe they had been hiding somehow. Jake activated the ship's communication system. He had to try talking to them. Make peaceful contact. Show them that humans came in peace. "This is Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel Horizon's Edge," he said into the microphone. "We are explorers from the planet Earth. We come in peace, seeking friendship and knowledge." Jake transmitted the message on multiple frequencies. Then he waited. The answer came faster than he expected. A harsh voice filled the bridge. The words were in a language Jake didn't understand, but the ship's computer quickly translated them. "Unknown vessel, you will surrender immediately. Prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in your destruction." Jake blinked. That wasn't the friendly first contact he had hoped for. "I repeat, we come in peace," Jake transmitted back. "We are explorers, not warriors. We mean no harm to you or your people." The response was even less friendly. Silence. Inferior being. "You will comply, or be destroyed. This system belongs to the Dominion. All unknown species are either slaves or enemies. There is no third option." The word Dominion sent a chill down Jake's spine. These weren't peaceful neighbors. They were conquerors. Jake watched his scanners as 3 large ships broke away from the planet's orbit. They were moving fast, very fast. Much faster than anything humans had built. The ships were sleek and deadly looking, with weapon ports along their hulls. Jake had minutes to decide what to do. Run away? Try to hide? Fight? The Horizon's Edge had been built for exploration, not war. It had basic shields and a few small weapons for asteroid clearing. Nothing that could fight military vessels. But Jake was different now. He had abilities he didn't fully understand. Maybe he could find a way. The 3 ships approached fast. Jake tried one more time to communicate. "Please, we don't want to fight. Let us leave peacefully and we'll never return." The lead ship answered by firing a blue energy beam that struck the Horizon's Edge. The ship shook violently. Sparks flew from control panels. Warning lights flashed everywhere. "Hull breach on deck 7, the computer announced. "Shields at 60%. Jake gripped the pilot controls. Time to see what his enhanced reflexes could do. The Dominion ships moved in perfect formation, trying to surround the Horizon's Edge. But Jake's mind seemed to work faster now. He could see their attack pattern before they completed it. He could predict where they would be seconds before they got there. Jake pushed the engines to maximum power and dove toward the planet. The Dominion ships followed, firing more energy beams. But Jake twisted and turned the ship in ways that should have been impossible. His enhanced coordination let him pull maneuvers that would have made any normal pilot pass out. "Impossible," came a transmission from one of the Dominion ships. "No inferior species flies like that." The lead ship fired something different. Not an energy beam, but some kind of net made of electricity. It wrapped around the Horizon's Edge and began draining power from the engines. Jake felt something strange happen. When the electric net touched his ship, he could feel it like it was touching his own skin. The sensation was overwhelming at first, but then he understood. He could sense the energy flowing through the net. He could feel how it worked. Without really thinking about it, Jake reached out with his mind and grabbed control of the electric net. Instead of draining his ship's power, he reversed the flow. The net began pulling energy from the Dominion ship instead. The enemy vessel suddenly lost power and began drifting. What? How is this possible? Voices shouted over the communication channel. Jake had no time to wonder about his new ability. The other two ships were closing in fast. One of them fired some kind of missile at the horizon's edge. Jake saw the missile coming and knew he couldn't dodge it. Instead, he did something that surprised even him. He reached out with his enhanced senses and touched the missile's guidance system. Like the electric net, he could feel how it worked. And if he could feel it, he could control it. Jake turned the missile around and sent it back at the ship that fired it. The explosion lit up space like a new star. The remaining Dominion ship stopped its attack. Jake could hear confused voices speaking rapidly in their alien language. "Report to command," one voice finally said in clear words. "We have encountered an impossible enemy. Request immediate assistance." Jake felt a moment of satisfaction, but it didn't last long. If this ship called for help, more would come. Probably a lot more. The damaged Dominion ship was trying to restart its engines. Jake could have destroyed it easily, but he didn't want to kill anyone if he could help it. Instead, he reached out with his mind again and scrambled their communication systems. They wouldn't be calling for help anytime soon. The working ship turned and flew back toward the planet at high speed. Jake watched it go and knew he had just made a terrible mistake. He had shown these Dominion people that humans were dangerous, that he was dangerous. Now they would see him as a threat that had to be destroyed. Jake flew the horizon's edge away from the planet and hid behind one of the system's outer moons. He needed time to think and plan. The ship's auto-repair systems worked on fixing the damage from the battle. While the repairs continued, Jake studied the scanner data from the fight. The Dominion ships were advanced, but their technology felt familiar somehow. Not human familiar, but like something he had encountered before. It took Jake several hours to figure it out. The exotic particles in his cells. The same particles that had changed him during the long journey. He could sense traces of those same particles in the Dominion technology. Somehow, these alien conquerors were using the same energy source that had transformed him. That's why he could control their weapons and systems. He was connected to the same power that ran their ships. Jake spent the next day learning more about his abilities. He practiced reaching out with his mind to touch the ship's systems. He found he could repair damage just by thinking about it. He could boost the engines beyond their normal limits. He could even improve the weapon systems in ways that shouldn't have been possible. But the most amazing discovery came when Jake tried to contact Earth. The communication system had been damaged in the fight, but when Jake touched the controls, something incredible happened. His enhanced abilities amplified the signal far beyond the system's normal range. For a brief moment, Jake connected with Earth's communication network. What he learned made his blood run cold. Earth had sent other expeditions after losing contact with the horizon's edge. Multiple colony ships had been launched toward different star systems. But according to the fragmentary signals Jake received, several of those expeditions had vanished without a trace. Now Jake understood why the Dominion had been so quick to attack. They had encountered humans before, and they had learned to see humanity as a threat worth destroying. But they had never encountered a human like Jake, a human enhanced by the same exotic particles that powered their technology, a human who could turn their own weapons against them. Jake looked out at the stars and made a decision. He couldn't run back to Earth and bring war to his home planet. He couldn't abandon the other human expeditions that might still be out there somewhere. He had to fight, not just for himself, But for all of humanity, and with his new abilities, maybe he actually had a chance to win. Jake had been hiding behind the moon for 3 days when they came for him. His scanners detected them long before they arrived. 12 ships this time, not 3. Big ones. Warships built for serious fighting. The lead ship was different from the others. Larger and covered with strange spikes and sensors. When it got close enough, a new voice came over the communication system. This voice was colder than the others, more dangerous. "I am War Marshal Vexstar of the Dominion Fleet. You are the impossible human who destroyed our patrol ships. You will surrender now or face complete annihilation." Jake activated his own transmitter. "I already told your people. We came in peace. You attacked us first. Peace?" The alien commander laughed, a harsh sound like breaking glass. "There is no peace between the Dominion and inferior species. You are either our slaves or our enemies. You have chosen to be enemies." "Then I guess we're enemies," Jake said. The War Marshal's voice became even colder. "You cannot imagine what forces I have brought against you, human. I have Tracker Zahn Kree, who has never lost a target. I have Mindripper Tonuses, who can break any creature's will. I have 50 battle mechs and the finest warriors in Dominion space." Jake looked at his scanners. The ships were spreading out, trying to surround the moon. Classic military tactics. They would trap him and then crush him with overwhelming force. But Jake wasn't planning to stay trapped. "You made one mistake," Jake transmitted back. "What mistake could I possibly have made, inferior human?" "You told me you were coming." Jake fired up the Horizon's Edge engines and shot out from behind the moon. But instead of running away, he flew straight at the Dominion fleet. The enemy ships opened fire immediately. Dozens of energy beams and missiles filled space around Jake's ship. But Jake's enhanced reflexes let him dodge between the attacks like he was dancing. His mind worked so fast that the enemy weapons seemed to move in slow motion. Jake flew straight at the War Marshal's flagship. At the last second, he spun his ship around and fired his small weapons at the big vessel's engine section. The shots should have barely scratched the enemy ship's armor. Instead, something amazing happened. When Jake's weapons hit the flagship, he felt the connection again. The exotic particles in his body resonated with similar particles in the enemy ship's power core. Jake reached out with his enhanced abilities and grabbed control of the flagship's entire electrical system. A massive warship suddenly went dark. All its weapons stopped firing. Its engines shut down. Emergency lights flickered on as the ship drifted helplessly. "Impossible." War Marshal Vexstar's voice cracked with shock. "Our systems are protected. No one can breach our defenses." "I'm not just anyone," Jake replied. The other 11 ships regrouped quickly. These weren't the confused patrol ships from his first battle. These were experienced warriors who adapted fast to new threats. They stopped using energy weapons and switched to solid projectiles. Chunks of metal fired at incredible speeds. Jake couldn't control metal bullets the way he could control energy. Systems. One of the projectiles hit the Horizon's Edge in the rear section. Jake felt the impact through his enhanced connection to his ship. The hit had damaged his main engines. Now Jake was in real trouble. He could still move, but not fast enough to dodge everything the enemy threw at him. More hits would cripple or destroy his ship. Time to try something new. Jake had been practicing with his abilities during the 3 days of hiding. He had discovered he could extend his influence beyond just touching systems. If he concentrated hard enough, he could reach out to nearby technology that used exotic particles. Jake focused his mind and reached toward the nearest Dominion ship. At first, nothing happened. The distance was too great. But Jake pushed harder, extending his consciousness like an invisible hand. Contact. Jake felt the enemy ship's systems like they were part of his own body. navigation, weapons, life support. All of it connected to power cores that hummed with exotic particle energy. Jake twisted the ship's navigation system. The vessel suddenly spun out of control and crashed into another enemy ship. Both vessels exploded in a ball of fire and metal. What is happening? War Marshal Vexstar shouted over the communication channel. All ships report. But Jake wasn't finished. He reached out to another ship and scrambled its weapon targeting systems. The confused vessel began firing at its own allies, instead of at Jake. Chaos spread through the Dominion fleet. Ships fired on each other. Some spun wildly out of control. Others shut down completely as Jake overwhelmed their computer systems. But using his abilities this way was exhausting. Jake felt like he was trying to lift heavy weights with his mind. Sweat poured down his face. His hands shook from the effort. He couldn't keep this up much longer. That's when the battle mechs attacked. 50 giant robots launched from the larger ships. Each mech was the size of a small building, armed with weapons and covered in thick armor. They flew through space using rocket packs, heading straight for the horizon's edge. Jake tried to reach out and control the mechs, but their systems were different, older. They used less exotic particle technology and more basic mechanical systems. His enhanced abilities had less effect on them. The mechs began cutting into his ship's hull with laser torches. Jake could hear them through the walls, getting closer to the bridge. In minutes, they would break through and capture or kill him. Jake made a desperate decision. If he couldn't control the mechs from a distance, he would have to face them up. Close. Jake grabbed a spacesuit and emergency tools from the ship's supply locker. He had never been in a space battle, wearing just a suit before, but his enhanced body might be able to survive what would kill a normal human. Jake opened the airlock and stepped out into space. The first battle mech he encountered was surprised to see a human floating in the vacuum without a ship. It raised its weapon arm to shoot Jake, but Jake was already moving. His enhanced speed let him dodge the mech's shots and get in close. Jake grabbed onto the mech's arm and felt for its power. Systems. There. A power cable running from the main body to the weapon. Jake gripped the cable with his enhanced strength and ripped it free. The mech's weapon died immediately, but the mech wasn't helpless. It tried to grab Jake with its other arm. Jake twisted away and found another power cable. This one controlled. The mech's rocket pack. Jake severed the cable and sent the mech spinning away into space. Helpless and out of control, 2 more mechs approached from different directions. Jake pushed off from the first mech and flew toward them. In the zero gravity of space, his enhanced reflexes gave him incredible mobility. Jake destroyed both mechs by shorting out their power systems. But the effort was draining his strength. Fast. There were still 47 mechs left, and more ships in the fleet. That's when Jake noticed something else on his scanners. Another ship approaching the battle. But this one looked different, smaller, and it was broadcasting a signal that made Jake's heart jump. Human signal. The new ship flew past the Dominion fleet and stopped near Jake. A voice came over his suit's communicator. A human voice. A woman's voice. Unknown human. This is Dr. Kira Bell of the Earth expedition vessel New Dawn. Do you need assistance? Jake stared at the ship in amazement. Another human survivor. He wasn't alone after all. Dr. Bell, this is Commander Jake Morrison. Yes, I definitely need assistance. Hold on, Commander. We're coming to get you. The New Dawn opened fire on the remaining battle mechs with weapons Jake had never seen before. Advanced human weapons that cut through the mech armor like paper dot as Jake floated in space, watching another human ship save his life. He realized something important had changed. The hunt had become something else. Now it was war. Jake floated in space as the New Dawn's rescue pod pulled him inside. His hands were still shaking from the battle. He had never fought so many enemies at once before. The exhaustion hit him like a wave as soon as he was safe. Dr. Kira Bell met him at the airlock. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and intelligent eyes. Her face showed the stress of someone who had seen too much war. "Commander Morrison," she said as Jake removed his helmet. "We've been tracking Dominion communications about an impossible human who could control their technology. That was you." Jake nodded. "How many other humans are out here?" "Not many," Kira replied sadly. "The New Dawn carried 50 people when we left Earth 15 years ago. Now we have 12 survivors. The Dominion captured or killed the rest." She led Jake through the ship's corridors. The New Dawn was smaller than the Horizon's edge, but built for fighting. Jake could see weapon systems and armor plating that hadn't existed when his expedition left Earth. "Earth knew about the Dominion?" Jake asked. "Eventually. After we lost contact with 6 colony expeditions, Earth's government started preparing for war. The New Dawn was one of the first military scout ships they sent out. They reached the ship's medical bay. Dr. Kira ran scanners over Jake while they talked. Her eyes grew wide as she read the results. "This is incredible," she whispered. "Your cellular structure is completely different from normal humans. What happened to you?" Jake explained about the extended cryo-sleep and the exotic particles from the nebula. Kira listened with growing excitement. "Those particles," she said. "We've encountered them before. The Dominion uses them to power their most advanced technology. But we could never figure out how to control that power ourselves." "I can control it," Jake said, "but I don't understand how." Kira showed Jake to the ship's main laboratory. Tables were covered with captured Dominion equipment. Weapons, computers, pieces of battlemechs. All of it torn apart and studied. "We've been trying to reverse engineer their technology for years," Kira explained. "But every time we think we understand something, it stops working. Like the machines know we're not supposed to be using them." Jake walked over to a Dominion energy rifle. The moment he touched it, the weapon came to life. Lights flashed along its surface. Energy hummed through its core. "How did you do that?" Kira asked in amazement. "I don't know. It just feels natural." Jake picked up other pieces of equipment. All of them responded to his touch. Computers turned on. Weapons powered up. Communication devices began scanning for signals. "This changes everything," Kira said. "With your abilities, we might actually have a chance to fight back." Kira led Jake to the ship's bridge where the other survivors were waiting. Captain Roy Davis was a tough-looking man with gray hair and scars on his face. Navigator Helen Price was young, but had the steady hands of someone who had flown through many battles. The others were engineers, soldiers, and scientists who had learned to fight to stay alive. "Tell me about the Dominion," Jake said. "What are we really facing?" Captain Davis activated a star map. Red dots covered dozens of star systems. "The Dominion controls over 40 star systems," Davis said. "They've been expanding for centuries. Any species they encounter becomes slaves or gets wiped out. No exceptions. How many ships do they have?" "Thousands. Maybe tens of thousands. This fleet that attacked you was just a small patrol force." Jake felt his heart sink. Even with his enhanced abilities, how could he fight an entire empire? "But they have a weakness," Helen Price added. "All their technology is controlled by a central command system. Every ship, every weapon, every battlemech connects to command centers on their major worlds. If we could disrupt those command centers," Kira said, "we might be able to turn their own technology against them." "Where are these command centers?" Jake asked. Captain Davis pointed to a blue star on the map. "The main one is here. Kepler 442b. The planet you were approaching when they first attacked you. Jake studied the map. The planet was heavily defended. Hundreds of ships patrolled around it. Massive orbital weapons platforms surrounded the world like deadly moons. "It's a fortress," Jake said. "How do we get close enough to attack it?" "We don't attack it," Kira said with a strange smile. "We get captured." She explained her plan. The Dominion had been capturing humans for experiments. They wanted to understand human technology and biology. If Jake allowed himself to be captured, he could be taken directly to their research facilities on the planet. "Once you're inside," Kira continued, "you can use your abilities to take control of their systems from within. We'll coordinate an attack from outside at the same time." "That's a suicide mission," Captain Davis said. "If they discover what Jake can do before he reaches the command center, they'll kill him immediately." "It's the only chance we have," Jake replied, "and I'm the only one who can do it." Jake spent the next 2 days preparing for the mission. He studied captured Dominion equipment until he could operate it blindfolded. He learned their language from the ship's translation computers. Most importantly, he practiced hiding his enhanced abilities. The hardest part was learning to touch Dominion technology without activating it. Jake had to resist his natural connection to the exotic particles. It was like trying not to breathe. On the 3rd day, they put the plan into action. The new dawn approached the patrol routes around Kepler 442b. Jake got into an escape pod that had been damaged to look like it came from a destroyed ship. "Remember," Kira said over the communicator, "act weak and helpless. Let them think you're just another human survivor." "I'll try to remember that," Jake replied. The escape pod drifted until a Dominion patrol ship found it. Jake was unconscious when they brought him aboard, thanks to a drug Kira had given him. When he woke up, he was in a prison cell with metal walls and no windows. A Dominion soldier stood outside the cell. The alien looked like a cross between a lizard and an insect, with green scales and multiple arms. Its voice was translated by a collar around Jake's neck. "You are prisoner 4847, the soldier said. "You will be taken to the research facility for study. Do not attempt to escape or you will be killed." Jake nodded weakly. "I understand." The prison ship took Jake to the planet's surface. Through a small window, he could see the Dominion cities. Massive towers reached up toward the sky like metal claws. Ships flew between them in perfect formation. The research facility was a huge complex built into the side of a mountain. Jake was taken through corridors filled with laboratories and holding cells. In some of the cells, he saw other humans. They looked tired and afraid. Jake's cell was in the deepest part of the facility. The walls were covered with sensors and cameras. The Dominion scientists wanted to watch everything he did. For 3 days, Jake acted like a normal, frightened human. He answered questions about Earth and human technology. He submitted to medical tests and brain scans. He never touched any equipment in a way that would reveal his abilities. But all the time, Jake was learning. He memorized the facility's layout. He identified the location of the central command center. Most importantly, he discovered something that changed everything. The facility wasn't just studying humans. It was trying to create hybrid soldiers. Dominion warriors enhanced with human DNA and exotic particle exposure. They were trying to copy what had happened to Jake, but their experiments were failures. The hybrid soldiers were unstable and weak. They couldn't control the exotic particle energy the way Jake could. On the 4th night, Jake made his move. He waited until the facility was quiet and reached out with his enhanced senses. The entire complex was filled with technology powered by exotic particles. Jake could feel it all like a vast network of electricity. Jake stood up in his cell and placed his hand against the wall. Energy flowed through him and into the facility's systems. One by one, he took control of every computer, every weapon, every security system in the complex. Alarms began blaring throughout the facility, but the alarms were under Jake's control now. He used them to send a signal to the new dawn waiting in orbit. The final battle was about to begin. Jake felt the entire research facility respond to his touch. Every computer, every security system, every weapon was now under his control. The exotic particles in his body connected him to the massive network of Dominion technology, like he was part of the machine itself. Guards rushed toward his cell, but Jake had already unlocked every door in the prison section. Human prisoners poured out into the corridors. Among them, Jake saw Captain Roy Davis and Navigator Helen Price. They had been captured during a rescue mission 2 months ago. "Jake!" Roy shouted as he ran toward the cell. "How did you get the doors open?" "Long story," Jake replied. "Right. Now we need to get to the command center." Jake led the group of freed humans through the facility. When Dominion soldiers tried to stop them, Jake turned their own weapons against them. Energy rifles shut down in their hands. Battlemechs turned and fired on their operators instead of the escaping prisoners. But Jake could sense something bigger happening outside the facility. War Marshal Vexstar was calling for massive reinforcements. Ships were arriving from across the Dominion Empire. Hundreds of vessels filled the space around the planet. "The command center is this way," Jake said, following the mental map he had built of the facility's systems. They moved deeper into the mountain complex. The command center was a vast chamber filled with screens and control stations. Alien technicians worked at consoles that monitored Dominion operations across dozens of star systems. At the center of it all was a massive computer core that pulsed with exotic particle energy. Jake walked straight to the central console. The moment his hands touched it, he felt his consciousness expand across the entire Dominion network. He could sense ships, weapons, and facilities spread across 40 star systems. All of it connected. All of it waiting for his control. But the network fought back. Security programs tried to block his access. AI systems attempted to cut his connection. The Dominion had built defenses against exactly this kind of intrusion. Jake pushed harder. Energy flowed through him and into the network. His enhanced abilities grew stronger as he drew power from the exotic particle cores throughout Dominion space. The security systems couldn't stop him because he wasn't just hacking their technology. He was becoming part of it. War Marshal Vexstar. Voice echoed through the command center speakers. "Impossible, human. You have made a fatal mistake. Even if you control this facility, you cannot escape. I have called every ship in the sector. You are surrounded by over 2,000 vessels." Jake smiled as he accessed the fleet deployment screens. Vexstar was right. The space around the planet was filled with Dominion ships. More ships than Jake had ever seen in one place. "You're right," Jake said into the communication system. "I can't escape. Then you will surrender and accept your death with dignity." "I never said I was trying to escape." Jake reached deeper into the network. His consciousness spread to every ship in the massive fleet. Frigates, destroyers, battleships, carriers. All of them connected to the central command system. All of them powered by exotic particle technology. All of them now under Jake's control. The first thing Jake did was turn off the weapons targeting. The new dawn. Kira's ship had been hiding behind one of the planet's moons, but now it could move freely. The second thing Jake did was reprogram the identification systems of every ship in the fleet. According to their computers, they were no longer Dominion vessels. They were now part of the human resistance. War Marshal Vexstar's voice became frantic. "What is happening?" "Fleet Command, respond. Why are our ships not following orders?" Jake answered through the fleet communication system. His voice now came from every ship at once. "They are following orders." "My orders. Impossible. You cannot control our entire fleet. Watch me." Jake began turning the massive fleet against itself. Ships that had been allies moments before now fired on each other. Battle formations broke apart as vessels switched sides mid-fight. The careful organization of the Dominion fleet became chaos. But controlling so many ships at once was exhausting. Jake felt his strength draining away like water through a broken dam. Sweat poured down his face. His hands shook from the effort. "Jake, you're pushing too hard." Dr. Kira's voice came over his communicator. "Your life signs are spiking dangerously." "I can handle it," Jake replied. But even he wasn't sure that was true. War-Marshal Vextar made one last desperate attempt to regain control. He ordered all ships to shut down their exotic particle cores simultaneously. If the ships had no power, Jake couldn't control them. But Jake had learned something important during his time in the research facility. The exotic particles weren't just a power source. They were alive in a way. They had a kind of intelligence that responded to strong will and clear purpose. Instead of fighting the shutdown, Jake embraced it. He reached out to every particle in every ship and spoke to them directly. Not with words, but with pure intention. The particles responded. Instead of shutting down, they began working together across the entire fleet. Energy flowed between ships, creating a network more powerful than anything the Dominion had ever built. Jake felt his consciousness expand beyond the fleet to other Dominion facilities throughout their empire. Weapons platforms, research stations, entire planetary defense networks. All of it connected by exotic particle technology. All of it now responding to his will. "This ends now," Jake said, his voice broadcasting across 40 star systems. Jake didn't destroy the Dominion Empire. Instead, he transformed it. Every slave world was suddenly freed as their prison systems shut down. Every Dominion military base found its weapons turned toward space instead of toward conquered peoples. Every ship in their vast fleet received new orders: protect the innocent and help rebuild what the Dominion had destroyed. War Marshal Vextar's flagship drifted powerless in space. Jake could have destroyed it easily, but instead he opened a communication channel. "Your empire is finished," Jake told the alien commander. "But your people don't have to be. There's a place in this galaxy for everyone, as long as they choose peace over conquest. You ... You cannot hold this power forever, human. Eventually you will weaken, and we will take back what is ours." "Maybe," Jake admitted. "But by then, the galaxy will be different. The species you enslaved will be strong again, and they'll remember that humans stood with them when it mattered." Over the following weeks, Jake worked with Dr. Kira and the other human survivors to establish a new government for the region. Representatives from dozens of formerly enslaved species came together to form a peaceful confederation. Jake found that his enhanced abilities were still growing. He could now maintain control over the exotic particle network without constant effort. The technology had become a natural extension of his consciousness. The research facility was converted into a medical center where Jake worked with alien scientists to heal the damage done by Dominion experiments. Many of the hybrid soldiers could be helped. Some of the enslaved species had genetic damage that could be repaired. 3 months after the battle, Jake received a transmission that made him smile. A message from Earth, transmitted by a massive colony fleet that was finally approaching Dominion space. "This is Admiral Lisa Foster of the Earth Colonial Fleet. We've been monitoring strange energy signatures from your region. Please identify yourself." "This is Commander Jake Morrison," he replied. "And I have a lot to tell you about what we've found out here." Jake looked out at the stars from his new command center on Kepler 442b. Ships from dozens of species moved peacefully between planets. Trade routes that had been controlled by Dominion military forces now carried food and medicine to worlds that needed help. He had emerged from Cryo-Sleep as just one man on a broken ship. Now he was the guardian of an entire region of space. The exotic particles had given him the power to control technology. But the real power came from something else, the power to choose peace over war. The power to protect instead of conquer. The power to prove that humanity belonged among the stars, not as rulers, but as friends. Jake smiled as he watched the Earth fleet approach. Humanity was no longer alone in the galaxy. And with any luck, they never would be again.